What's up? It's your boy Kingtif at the Kingtif Network, and I have a very important interview this week. I have future Congresswoman Shontel Brown in the building sitting down with me, and I have two important announcements to make. One, early voting starts now, so go do that. Two, before these bugs take me out. Election, August 3rd, special election. Go vote. Now, I'm out of here. Okay, how we doing? This is Kingtif, and we're back with another great interview, and we have somebody here who has changed the game, I would say, in a lot of ways for not just the black community, but for women, for people of color that are looking to pursue the next level and the way to do it the right way. And she was born in the same city that she's willing to create opportunities in. And I think that is so powerful. So I have Miss Shontel Brown here today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kingtif. I'm good. How are you today?
I'm good. A little nervous, but we're gonna get past it.
We'll get through it. We'll get through it together.
Together, and that's what it's about. So how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm a little excited and a little nervous like you.
Yes.
I'm running for Congress right now.
Yes.
So that is taking up a lot of my time and energy.
Huge.
But it is an honor to be with you today. So thank you for having me.
Well, let's get into that because you just don't get to running for Congress, fresh out of high school. So kind of take the people through how you kind of get to those steps to where you're at right now.
Well, thank you for that. So I kind of got into politics in a unique way. I always like to start with a story that I tell often, which is what led me to my first city council meeting, and that was my neighbors. My neighbors at the time were all senior citizens and all retirees, and they treated me like their very own. And what I wanted to know was where I would take them in the event of an emergency. Kind of a weird thing, but it was right after the earthquake tragedy had struck in Japan. A little bit probably before your time. You may remember that.
Okay. What year?
That was 2011.
Yeah. High school.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't know what was going on.
Right.
We thought the world was ending a little bit. But okay. Yeah.
Right. So the same here. So right. Like, if we have an emergency, where do we go? Yeah. And so I thought for sure the right place to get the answer would be my city council meeting, and I was right. But something said, keep going to the meeting so you can learn about what's happening in your community.
Wow.
And so what I learned was things weren't great, but they weren't bad, but they could be better.
Yes.
And so rather than complain, I believe in the expression, be the change you want to see. And so that's what led me to run for my first office. So fast forward, I continue to go to the meetings, and the administration took notice, and they said, if you need help out there, let us know. And if you've ever campaigned before, when you're knocking on people's doors, they are not shy about pointing out issues that need to be addressed.
Wow,
and
really?
Yeah, so they're pointing out trees that needed to be trimmed, and sewers that needed to be cleaned, and potholes that needed to be filled, all of those things. And I took the administration's offer and took pictures and said, can you help this person over here? Can you help this person over here? And things started happening.
Wow.
So I'm feeling pretty good, right?
Yeah,
Fast forward, election day comes, the polls close, and I was down by 6 votes.
6 votes?
Yes, 6 votes. So I'm like, okay, I'm a child of faith. I've never been shy about my faith.
Absolutely.
I said, okay, I trust God's infinite wisdom. This must not be for me.
Yes.
And I was convinced that I might not ever run for politics again.
Wow.
But little did I know there were 23 provisional ballots in the race. And what a provisional ballot is, for the people who don't know.
Break it down.
Yes.
She done already went past my head. All right, I'm going to come back.
Yeah. So a provisional ballot is what you receive. So let's say you register to vote, but you move to a new address, and you go to that new address and you forgot to update your registration. They want to make sure you're not trying to vote twice. Or you might get a provisional ballot. Let's say you say, I'm going to vote early, but the ballot never shows up at your house. So when you go to vote in person, your name's not on the roll. Again, they'll give you a provisional to make sure you're not trying to vote twice.
Yeah.
So there were 23 of those in my race.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's big.
That's big.
You only need 6.
Right.
Wow, okay.
Right. So things are looking good.
Yes.
Right? So 11 days later, after they counted those 23 provisional ballots, and it's a waiting process because they want to make sure again that the people are indeed registered to vote, and not trying to vote twice. And I learned I'd won by 7 votes.
Wow.
13 points. Yes. And for me, as a believer, that 7 has been so significant because 7 represents perfection, completion, and God. So I often say I do this public service work by His divine intervention, grace, mercy, and favor. So 3 years later, 3 years after that, I became, the people blessed me with a promotion, I like to say. I got elected to the current seat that I hold, which is a Cuyahoga County Council representative.
Yeah,
that's big. Yeah, it's big.
That's
so
a big thing.
We got 10, I represent 10 of the 59 communities in Cuyahoga County. And my constituency goes from the inner city to the outer ring suburbs, which means I represent some of the most impoverished to some of the most affluent, and every person in between. And I think that really prepared me for what you kind of touched on in my intro, which in 2017 I got elected to become the first woman and the first black person ever elected to lead the largest Democratic county party in our state. And we're not the most popular, so that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So to be able to deliver more votes from the precinct to the presidency demonstrates a reflection of my leadership. But I'm both humbled and pleased to do this work.
Yes, that is an amazing story.
Thank you.
That's an amazing start. You're just getting started. That is crazy.
Oh, you're so sweet to say that.
That is an amazing start. That's something outstanding. And you spoke on something that I want to touch on more: leadership. I was reading some things and doing a little bit of my research going into this, and a lot of people talked about your leadership growing up and how that kind of propelled you in a lot of ways to the position you are now. So when did you know you were a leader?
That's a great question. So I have to say that my parents, especially my mom, really instilled in me what amounted to be leadership values. At an early age, she just really made it clear to me that you always treat people the same, regardless to their position, how they look, their gender, their race, their age, all of those things. And I think that is the foundation for a leader. I also kind of learned that I was a little bit different in elementary school when I was always kind of nominated to be the MC for all of our programs.
There it goes. That makes a lot of sense.
And this was like, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. I was always, the teacher, Shontel, you're going to MC. And so I didn't really realize it right away, but I kind of knew there's something different, about me that people like, and but I just, you're young, so I was just having fun. Just rolling with it, so having fun. But in school, I think those leadership qualities really started to develop. In high school, I was elected class vice president.
Wow!
So this
people's
political
champ,
right?
Really, I love it.
This political thing has been going on for a long time. So I think it was in school is when I really learned that I had some leadership qualities.
I love that. Okay, so there's a big thing that I talk about a lot. The difference between a leader and somebody in a position of leadership. So how does somebody in a position of leadership actually show that they're a leader? So you have the role, you have the position. How do you still go out there and show the people I deserve to be in this position?
I think that's a great question, first of all. I think that it starts by leading by example and being a servant first.
Yes.
Like, you can't be a good leader until you're a good follower.
Absolutely.
And a good servant, so you got to be willing to serve. And in every leadership role that I've been blessed to have, I'm never asking anyone to do anything that I'm unwilling to do.
I love that.
So you got to be, if you're telling people I need you to go 100, you better be going 100.
Yeah.
You know, if you're telling people, I want you to clean this up, you got to demonstrate. I'm willing to clean this up with you. So it's just like, you know, no job or no role is too small. You just got to be really willing to roll up your sleeves and demonstrate. You know, I'm here for the task. I'm not just a person to try to boss you around, and just being really available to show people by example.
I love that. That's a great answer. And this kind of like my last touch on leadership, but I want to kind of flow it into, you know, the pandemic and COVID-19. So how was your leadership tested during that time? I know it was. I mean, immediately. But how was it tested, and then how did you overcome to get, you know, to the point where you're still moving forward, you're still pushing the envelope?
You are coming with the real serious questions. Okay, so yes, the pandemic tested us in so many ways. I mean, even from the fact that we had to transition ourselves from going into the office to virtual, to virtual
Zooms,
meetings, Zooms, all the time.
All the time.
It's nice to be face to face.
It definitely is.
Yeah, so that put a different type of twist on leadership, because we weren't able to connect physically with people, and so that interaction became extremely critical to be able to communicate with people either over the phone or by Zoom. But what I really like to highlight is, after the tragic killing of George Floyd, as the leader of the Democratic County Party, I started to feel a lot of pressure to say something. And so if you were to check out my social media, I put out an 8-minute statement, and I think that was something that needed to be heard by people, not just here in Ohio, but across the country. And part of the thing that I said in that statement was that we needed to declare racism as a public health crisis and to hold our elected officials accountable.
And that's including yourself.
Yes, including myself.
So you're putting yourself on the chopping block.
Yep.
That is powerful.
But you know what? It's not it was never really like a fear or threat or a concern to me, because when you're doing what you know you're called to do, you let the rest just unfold and happen as it will. So during that time too, I was able to successfully declare racism as a public health crisis in Cuyahoga County, and this was more than a symbolic gesture. I wanted it to be more than just words on paper. So what I was very intentional about was including statistical data around education, healthcare, criminal justice, transportation, affordable housing, all the things that have had a disparate impact on our communities, communities of color. And I wanted that statistical data in there for two reasons. I wanted there to be benchmarks so we know where we are, so we can measure, but also so my peers or colleagues, or even future colleagues, long after I'm gone, have a document to reference, so that they know that this legislation that was passed with both Democrat and Republican support, so bipartisan support, unanimously, so everyone voted for it, is deserving of the resources and the funding to address these issues.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was huge. The biggest test. Thank you. That was probably the biggest test during the pandemic, because these are some of the most volatile and challenging times in our history. And so when it comes to federal government, right, we need people who can actually get things done, who have had some success working with the Republicans across the aisle to get things done. So, and I am that. So
that's great. That's
Thank
great.
you.
I think that's amazing that you were able to do that in a really short amount of time.
Well, I have to correct you on that. So it seems like a short amount of time, but the work actually began for me in 2016. Because,
okay.
So no, because,
that makes a lot of sense, though.
Right. So
how long the process does take. It takes a very long, but then like the last 6 months look like it just sped everything up. Right. That's great. So thank you for.
No, because I do think it's important for people to know that. I want people to have realistic expectations, because I know a lot of times we don't really understand the intricate workings of our government. But this work actually started in 2016. We started researching infant mortality crisis. The infant mortality crisis is what led to the legislation, because we have third world infant mortality rates and we have first class hospitals. And that just made no sense
at all.
So we did the research, and what the research told us is that it's the results of racism, structural, institutional, and systemic racism, things that create toxic stress in women's body that makes it very difficult for them to carry babies to full terms. So the work for me actually began October 2019 to declare racism as a public health crisis, and it was passed in 2020.
That's amazing. And the fact that you started with the infancy and how it correlates with what's going on right now and today is just it's crazy that you piece those together, because somebody had to do it, you know, to make it make sense. So that's amazing. And I want to talk about, before we get out of here, your congressional seat, right? That you're going for.
I'm going for it.
That's the Ohio 11.
You got it.
See, I'm not too. I try to do some research here, but all right. So explain that for the people who don't know exactly what that will mean.
Okay, so congressional seats and Senate seats, they're legislative seats. But I want to give a quick analogy. So, because I know you hoop a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so we ballers here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I always like to use this example so people can kind of understand how government works. So you got your center, right? That's your big guy.
Yeah.
So the center is the federal government, okay?
Okay.
And that's the president.
Set the lineup.
Your U.S. senator and your Congress members. Those are your federal people. That's the center.
Okay.
So then you got your power forward, right? Okay, so that's your state people. So that's the governor.
Okay, yeah.
That is your that's your governor, your state senators, your state representatives, secretary of state. So that's your fourth level of government.
Okay.
Then you come down to 3, regional. That's what I am. I'm currently a county council representative, but you got your county council, your county executives, your county sheriff. Those are your small forwards, if you will. And then you got we the two guards, right?
Two guards,
right.
Yes,
so
definitely.
we was coming
Hoopers,
through with the J, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But the twos are actually your local government.
Okay.
So that's like your mayor, your city council person, your school board members, all of the people on the local level.
Okay.
So then the one, that's the point guard.
Yeah.
That's the person who controls the game, right?
Yeah.
So who's the one in this analogy?
I don't know.
The voter.
Wow. Put it back on us. I love it.
So the voter is the one who really decides who the players are and what position they are in the game.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's an analogy that I like to use. So as it relates to the congressperson, we're legislators. We're the checks and balance in government. You remember there's the legislative branch, judicial branch, and the executive branch. So we're the legislative branch. We make the laws and oversee the budget when it comes to the presidency. So when we're talking about the COVID package, right?
Yes.
The big package, we all got stimulus checks, all of that. That was approved by Congress. So the president said, hey, I want to do this. And the Congress took it over and they looked at it and said, yeah, no, yes, no. And so then they kind of decide. And then the Senate also votes on that. So we're the first, we're 2 chambers of the legislative branch, and we help decide which laws will be passed as well as the budget as it relates to different things that come down to our local government funding and put money in our pockets too, because those stimulus checks helped a lot of people.
It did. It helped me. I was able to do a couple things. Got gas in the car, so that is very important. That's an important place to want to aspire to. Did you always want to go that route?
So listen, I didn't wake up and just decide, I'm running for Congress, and I certainly am not what I would define as a career politician looking to fulfill a lifelong fantasy.
Right.
This is really something that I think is the next logical step in what would be called a political journey, if you will. I served at the city level, serving at the regional level. So I have 10 years of legislative experience under my belt with a wide range of accomplishments. I mean, from public
safety. We could be
safety.
here for hours. Look, we could be here for a while.
Thank you. Yes, public safety, economic development, equity and inclusion.
Yes.
Just
you know where to put the money.
Yes, and I've been blessed with a lot of folks to work with, though. So I get a lot of credit, but the reality is we need people who can work together.
Yes.
And that's right. That's what's really been, I think, the key to my success. I've been willing to work with other people, hear their concerns, and it's put me on what some people might call a fast pace in the world of politics. But we have to have people that can collaborate, build consensus, and focus on the issues, and do more than just make a point.
Yes.
We have to make a difference.
Or a great speech.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
I agree.
Talk is cheap, right?
It's
still cheap, right?
It's very cheap.
So we need doers. We need people who know how to get things done. And I'm blessed to say that I have earned that reputation over my tenure in politics.
Absolutely. I mean, I could be here all day. 'Cause I could break down so many things you talked about. But I want to hit 2 more points before you get out of here because I know we got to go. I want to talk about a little bit about the entrepreneur. So we are in the My World Studios. This is the lovely studios. One of my mentors that I look up to very much. She is an entrepreneur and she built this thing from the ground up. How did and how do you continue to help the entrepreneur?
Great question. So as a person who also is a small business owner, grossly neglected because of politics. Let me just put that out there. But I understand the struggles. And so I think when it comes to helping other business owners, I've been a strong advocate and a voice at the table to make sure that we're getting our fair share, especially Black businesses. And this is something that I have a track record of delivering on. When we got our $200 million of COVID relief funds, $30 million of those dollars were going to be utilized to reconfigure our Cuyahoga County buildings to make them COVID compliant.
Okay.
So what troubled me about that, though, all of the contracts were awarded to majority companies, no minority participation.
Wow.
And so when I learned about that, I'm blessed to say my colleagues gave me the opportunity to share my concerns. And unbeknownst to me at the time, they stopped the legislation, so it did not move forward. Yeah, and so they reconsidered how they were awarding those contracts. So 50% went to the original majority companies, and the other 15 million went to minority businesses.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
So making sure that we have people in positions that will fight so that we get our fair share is going to be critical in this new administration. And I'm happy that this new administration is actually looking at things through a lens of equality, and equity, and inclusion. And so when it comes to these things, we will be able to have a voice and work with them to make sure that not only that we have the resources, because the tools are only as good as its users. So we have to make sure that when we get these tools, we have people in place that can assist us with getting utilizing them in the best way.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's amazing that you're in the room.
Yeah.
If you're not in the room, you can't have a say.
That's right.
So just being in the room is amazing, and then actually voicing your opinion in a way where it shifts the mind. I mean, that's revolutionary, you know. And I think that's definitely something that people as myself and people who are looking to have a voice definitely can aspire to want to be around. Just the energy, the thought process, and how you get things done. Because like we said, you can talk all you want, but if you're not getting anything done, or if you're not saying anything that's going to move anybody, you kind of need to be quiet.
Right, and I mean, you can be loud and as aggressive as you want outside, but it's not. It depends on the people who it counts. It matters on the people who are in the room, like you said, sitting at the table to set the menu. But the other thing is, we have to have people. It's not enough to just be in the room, because sometimes some folks are in the room and they just like
say that.
So we have to be willing to use our voice, and too often. Public servants, people who call themselves or should be public servants, aren't fulfilling that role. They're really more interested in their personal agendas rather than helping the people. And because I know how important it is to leave a legacy of productivity and make sure that wherever I come is better than I found it, I'm going to always speak up. And if it costs me my seat at the end of the day, then I know I did the right thing.
Absolutely.
As long as I know I did the right thing, then I'm good.
Absolutely. So I want to specifically the seat. The primary is August 3rd.
You got it.
2021.
Yes.
And then the general election is November 2nd. So this is a special election, right?
It is a special election.
Because of Miss Marsha Fudge moving up.
Yes.
With the President Biden group, and with you being a person who has a relationship with her.
Yes.
How did that help you make your decision to actually run?
Oh my goodness! So she's been both a mentor and a friend to me.
Absolutely.
That's no secret. She actually tapped me on the shoulder. I think it was in 2017, maybe 18. But she invited me, and this is you can only come by invitation, to be a part of the Congressional Black Caucus Institute,
Wow.
which is a week-long, really kind of training academy to prepare you to either become a congresswoman or to help some person be a congress member, if you will.
Wow.
And so I got that invitation. So clearly she saw something in me to prepare me for this day. So it wasn't something that I aspired to, which is grateful for the privilege. And the thing that she's always instilled in me is that if you stick with the people, then the people will stick with you.
Wow.
And so
that's huge. That's
so
a big one right
yes,
there.
Yes,
That's a gem. That's definitely a gem. And I'm gonna finish up. I got you. But I just got so many questions now.
Okay.
But okay, my last couple. How do you maintain a relationship such as that one? And just in general with your team, with the people, how do you build and keep a relationship going? It's so
now as your responsibilities grow and your territory grows, and I will admit it gets increasingly hard, but I think your dad can attest to this because he's known me a long time. But just maintaining, when you see people, I mean, for me, it's like just going back to when we first met when I was working in radio.
Yes.
But always just trying to, keep a positive connection. We don't have to talk every day or even every week, but just being there for people when they need you the most.
Yeah.
I think that is especially important in maintaining these relationships. And just the occasional check-in. Hey, what's up? How you doing? You good?
Yeah.
Like I said, we don't have to talk every day, but a quick text like, hey, you good? Or goes a long way,
Absolutely.
Especially in our world, because it just kind of lets people know that you're thinking about them, especially as it relates to elected office. Most of the calls you get, people need something or want something from you, so it's a blessing to be able to get a text. It's just like, hey, just checking on you. Like,
ooh,
me? Okay, yeah. Like.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
So just keeping the lines of communication open and just being there for people when they need you the most. I think that's the key to maintaining a good relationship.
That's amazing. Okay, last one, maybe. Social media. How big has that been in the pandemic, before the pandemic, to building that relationship, building the platform to be able to speak to the people quicker?
Kingtif, listen, I can use your help, brother. Like, y'all be on this social media non-stop.
It's getting past me. It's a lot.
I like it though. I like it because it does give you an opportunity to connect with people that you may not ever have had the opportunity to. So it is such a blessing. But it's another part of the job that is a big responsibility. The one thing that I really have been careful about as an elected official is just making sure when it comes to elected things that people know you can still call me on the phone in the office, or you can send me an email to the job, because those are really the platforms that will be most advantageous to getting things done. Because I don't check my social media as regularly as some people do.
Yeah.
And so I am guilty. Somebody might say, I sent you a message on Facebook, and I'll be like, Or so as an elected official, because that's the other thing with everything that we do. I just don't want to get caught up, because you can go down the social media lane and be on social media for hours. Next thing you know, you're like, oh man, exactly. So with right. So with all the things that I have to do, it requires a lot of discipline. But I also appreciate the medium to be able to share my messages, to share things with people who are interested in the campaign. It's been fantastic for that, pre and post pandemic, but especially post pandemic. So any tips you can share with me on how to maintain this social media platform? Okay, all right. Y'all heard them. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay, I got you. Look, people. Hey, look. Anyway, last question. My last question would be specifically the history you have made, the history you're going to make, and the continued ambitions you have. What could you tell a young, ambitious young black woman that can inspire them to keep going when things aren't always looking up. The rainy days, almost.
Yeah, so for my sisters and anybody, really, I think, we're going to have down times. We're going to, but you will not stay down. And it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. Like, we have to have someone or something, and for me, it's my faith that keeps us encouraged, especially when you get those dark days or dark moments, because they don't last long for me. Because I will throw on some Cardi B.
Talk to me then, okay.
Or some Korean. It just depends on the day, It just depends on the day. It depends on the mood.
Yeah.
But something to lift my spirit and kind of get me out of a space where I'm kind of feeling a little bit dejected or down, because this work is hard. Yeah. It is very hard, and it can be very challenging, and everybody does not always love you, and you have to have thick skin, because it is you have to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons. If you're doing this to self-promote, if you're doing this to elevate your profile, then it's going to be increasingly hard. But if you're doing this for the right reasons, then you kind of snap out of it and realize that I have a lot of people depending on me. And so that, for me, keeps me going, because I know that I have a lot of people depending on me. Wow. And so I can't wallow in self-pity. Nope. I can't stay down. I got too much work to do. Yeah. And so that is what keeps me motivated. So what motivates you is going to be essential to how you handle those difficult times.
Well, this was amazing, Shontel Brown. Thank you for sitting down. This is amazing. We're out of here.